Hi everyone, welcome to the 2020 March Meetup of the GDG Android Lagos community. Yes, so we'll begin off with introductions, right? I'm going to go first to show you an example for everybody. Please, as soon as you want to introduce yourself, kindly turn on your video, and then I'll probably be notifying the next person to introduce himself or herself. And so I'm Chizoba Bona. Yeah, I work with the Android team at Doist. Yeah, that's basically everything about me. And then I think next person is Ali Olalekan.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ali Olalekan Abdullah. I'm a software engineer at Freenow. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and he's going to be our presenter for today. So stay tuned. Yeah. So Isaac.
Oh, not GNZ. I tried to join that one. Like, nobody on that one.
Hey, you see me, my don't.
Isaac.
Hi everyone.
Hi.
My name is Isaac. I am a mobile developer. I'm starting work at GIG next week.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's Magid Abdallah.
Hello everyone, my name is Abdullah Magid. I'm a software engineer at Andela, developing for Android and sometimes for iOS. And this is my first time to GG. I'm very excited to start with it.
Cool. Welcome. It's nice to see people from other regions also. So cool, welcome.
Thank you.
Abdurrahman Kafelicious.
Hello everyone.
Hi.
I'm Abdurrahman. I develop for Android with Anchor Payments. I think that's about everything.
Okay, cool. Well, I have a lot of people here today. Yeah, so let's try making it snappy. Simon.
Hello, my name is Simon. I work as an Android developer at Kuda Bank.
Nice. Welcome, Simon. Mujib.
Hello everyone. My name is Aliu Abdulmujib. Oh wait, I didn't enable my camera. My name is Aliu Abdulmujib. I work as an Android engineer at Softcom Limited.
Welcome, Mujib. 1 second. Femi. Is Femi there? Okay, we'll move on to Franklin.
Yeah, hello everyone. My name is Franklin. I'm a mobile developer. I work with native Android and Flutter. I'm currently working with a fintech startup. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Iano.
Hi everyone, my name is Yano. I work as an Android developer at Kotan Kush. Thank you.
Cool, welcome. So Kelvin.
Hi, Kelvin here. Android developer, Port Harcourt.
Hi, welcome. Wow, people. 8 minutes. So when it reaches 10 minutes, we may need to, or let's see how we can wrap this up quickly. Mayo-kun.
Hello everyone, my name is Mayokun. I am an Android developer. I work with a small team in school. Yeah, I'm also a student. I work with a small team in school. I start there. Yeah.
Cool, welcome. Michael.
Hi everyone, Michael. I work with Paystack.
Welcome, Michael. Inabueze.
Hi everyone, this is Nabueze, Android developer, sometimes iOS.
Welcome. Oluwadara, first female in our midst.
Hey everybody, my name is Dara. I work as an Android developer at WorkPay.
Okay, welcome. Dilemma.
Hello everybody, my name is Belema. I work as an Android engineer in software.
Welcome. Else, Uluwale Elvis.
Hello everyone, my name is Oluwole Benson. I work as an Android developer at Maxut Consulting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Welcome. Sokari Gillis Harry. See there? Sokari. Okay, Timmy Koda.
Hello guys, I'm
Hi.
Timmy. I'm the software engineer at Crop to Cash.
Nice, welcome. Timothy.
Hi everyone, I'm Timothy Ademola. I'm an Android developer. Thank you.
Okay, Valentine. Oh, Tobina, sorry, Tobina. Is Tobina there?
Yeah, so I'm Tabina, basically. I'm an Android dev at Softcom. Ayo.
Yeah, welcome. Valentine.
Hello everyone. I'm Valentine. I'm a mobile developer at AppZone Group. I do native, Android, and Flutter as well.
Welcome. Zizo.
Hi everyone, I'm Zizo Anto, an Android engineer working at Softcom.
Babatunde Oladotun. Tony.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
My name is Tony, an Android developer with Decagon. Thank you.
Hi, welcome everyone. I think that's everyone. Or is there any other person I've not called? Please, if I've not called you, okay, GDG. Hello, GDG, are you there? Okay. Who else? Okay, so I think that's basically it. Or is there any other person I've not called? Anyone?
Yeah, so I guess I'll be the one then.
Okay, yeah, Emmanuel.
All right. So I'm Emmanuel Zibo. I'm a mobile developer at AppZone Group.
Okay, welcome.
Yeah.
Love that. Seems to have another lady. Okay. Okay, yeah. Is there another person who would like to introduce himself or herself? Or should we get started because we're 30 minutes into the meetup? Okay, cool. So if there's nobody else, just a quick recap of the instructions before we start the talk. If you have a question, can you guys hear me?
Your microphone got
I
more.
can hear
Yes,
you.
we can hear you.
But it's fine.
Okay, is it better now?
Yeah, it's fine.
Cool. Yes, so just before we start, if you have a question or if you have a comment, because as I said earlier, during the presentations, there'll be some times for conversation, just to keep it in an orderly manner and so that we don't have multiple people talking at once. Please let's just comment with the two keywords, either comment or question in the chat box. And then I will call you out to say your comment or ask your question. Yes, so first we'll be introducing our first speaker, who is Aliyu, who works as a software engineer at Free Now, introduced himself earlier, and he's going to be talking to us on going through the whole architectural pattern of MVP and majoring on some use cases that may be unique to different sections. So over to you, Aliyu.
Okay, guys, I'm going to be sharing my screen now. Let me just go through it. So we have, I think, 40 minutes, right? So I'll try as much as possible to convey the information. And at the end of the, should I say, learning or tutorials, or because we're learning together, then you ask questions. Okay, so I will share my screen now. Just to sure. Can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Positive.
Okay, good. All right. Let me turn up. It doesn't matter. Okay. MVP architecture. Let me present this. Okay, you can still see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So today we're going to talk about what MVP is, the architecture diagram. We talk about why we use it, and then we mention some the corners, like the downside to it. And then we'll go hands-on on how to use it. We'll be doing live coding on that. Don't worry, I'll try as much as possible to make it quick. Then I'll be talking about other scenarios and how to go about, little edge cases that you might have in whatever project you're building. And then we'll talk about what next, probably comparing with other architectures. Okay, so MVP is pretty much an acronym for Model View Presenter Architecture, and it's actually a subset or derived from Model View Controller Architecture. In Model View Controller Architecture, you have your model, you have your view, and the controller. So the controller handles both business logic and presentation logic, right? And the issue with that is too much work, right? The controller automatically becomes the God class. It handles almost every operation. You may have some delegation to some util classes. Anyways, testing can become really, really difficult. Code maintenance is also an issue. Then if someone else comes to inherit the code readability is just a very big problem. And of course, we know what happens when you have that. Scalability is an issue as well. If you change a little line in the code, you'll have a problem, everything starts breaking. So that's why we have MVP. So MVP pretty much solves a lot of that problem. So let's talk about the architecture diagram. So the model, you can see the model, you can see the view, and then you see the presenter. So the model is pretty much your, call it data object, right? So the model can be whatever model you have as your data object, and that model is observed by the presenter. The presenter actually manages the updating of change on it. The presenter updates the model, gets the model, performs all sort of operation on the model, right? Ideally, that's what it's supposed to be. And then all this happens from the user interaction, because user needs to say, for example, I want to log in, and then I need to interact with my phone to log in. So when the view receives that user interaction, the view now sends a message to the presenter that someone actually requests for login. And then the presenter performs some operations and then respond to the view. And then when you, if there's data for the response, presenter sends the data back to the view for live update or whatever, how you decide to update your view. This is the basic structure of MVP, but if you look into this structure critically, we are still not solving the problem, which is, having a God class. The presenters still seem to be doing both business logic and presentation logic, and that is not ideal. That is not what we want to have. So to optimize our MVP, we introduce another layer because, of course, we are not happy about that. This is not what we want. So to optimize this, we introduce another layer called the repository, right? So before I talk on repository, there is still one more layer which I left out in this presentation. But if you're working in some teams, you might see it a lot, which is the interactor. So between the presenter and the repository, there is another module here called the interactor, right? So what the interactor does basically is it's the mediator between your repository, some other services, could be shared preference, whatever, some other services, and the presenter, right? Because all business logic should not happen in the presenter. Presenter only handles presentation logic, and that's about it. And because it handles presentation logic, everything runs on the main thread on the presenter. See, from presenter to the view, everything happens where? On the main thread. If you have any operation that runs on the background thread, that will be handled by something called interactor. All right, just have that behind your mind. This is not complex. It's very, very simple. It's very basic, but just know you can actually have interactors, and interactors can only send can only perform one action at a time. So let me explain this. Say, for example, you have multiple endpoints. You have a service that perform multiple operations like maybe login, update user data, get user data, and so on and so forth. Each of these endpoints is going to have its own interactor. So you're going to have update user data interactor, get user data interactor, and so on and so forth, right? So your interactor can only perform one operation at a time, leveraging upon repository and other services. Now it's getting complex, and that's why I actually left it out. So for now, don't worry too much about that. For now, let's just focus on this. So we have the presentation logic and the business logic. The business logic, of course, the repository is a model that has been passed back and forth. We have our local storage. This could be your, you can use Room as your local storage. Of course, we know this SQLite and managed by an ORM like Room, Sugar, SQLite, whatever you want, right? And then we have our cloud storage, which is of course managed by the whatever service if you like, you can write it by hand. If you like, use retrofit, Volley, whatever you're using, that's your API service coming from the cloud, right? So everything settles in the repository. And then the repository decide on how to pass this data to the presenter. Remember, operations here are usually in the background, and then knows how to pass it to the presenter. And when it gets here, everything goes towards to the main thread. The presenter has to find a way to push everything back to the main thread. Just know that. And then from when it gets to the main thread, now the view can consume it without any issues. So now you can never have but like long running operation on the view. You can never have any crash that has to do with long running operation. It is not possible because everything here happens on the main thread. Okay, so now that we have this out, so why do we need MVP? Of course, I've talked about it. The issues around MVC, class being the God class, so much dependency on the controller handling both business and presentation logic. You can easily have long running operation issue and leading to your your ANR exception, right? So many problems that can arise from using controller one God class, maintenance, testing, so many. So that's why we have MVP. So click, okay. So what are the benefits of MVP? We said it's separate business logic from presentation logic. Maintenance is easy. Of course, it's very easy to maintain the code because it's highly modular. And then testing is also very easy because we are using interface a lot, and there is interface segregation. In fact, MVP pushes for interface segregation. So since we have interface segregation, testing is very, very easy. You can test each piece one by one. So you have a very nice unit testing. All right. So what are the cons? Okay, so this is the downside to MVP. Things gets really complex very fast. So if you, when I mean complex, I mean verbose, because remember I mentioned about something around interactor. Just every endpoint is going to have its own interactor. So it can get really verbose really quickly, and it is not naturally lifecycle aware. So when you're comparing with some other architectures like Mvvm and MVI, which are actually lifecycle aware, MVP is not, right? Naturally, it is not lifecycle aware, but you can make it lifecycle aware by adding a lifecycle observer. Okay. Then, of course, we have too many interfaces and boilerplates. So because MVP leverages on interface segregation, therefore you have many interfaces to deal with. So you can have too many boilerplates, because by the time you implement the interface, of course, you have a loss of method to override. Sometimes even the one you want, and you probably the ones you don't want. So there's a way around all of these issues, by the way. But for example, you can use abstract classes to mitigate issues around the boilerplate. For the naturally not lifecycle aware, you can introduce a lifecycle observer, and then things get really complex really fast. You can use Android modularization, right? So there are ways around all these cons, but they are there anyways. So now let's go straight to live coding. So we're going to be building a project or a to-do list application, very simple from ground up, and we are going to demonstrate how MVP actually works. And after the project, we'll talk about other scenarios that you might probably face while you're working. I assume you can still see my screen. So this is a very empty project that I created. And this project right now, uses dependencies like my recycler view, and I'm using mock for testing, and that's about it, nothing more, right? But for the whole API service and other thing, don't worry, we'll talk about that afterwards. Okay, so for this to-do list app, I've broken down the project into different folders. I chose this folder structure because we are talking architecture class, but tutorial. You might actually optimize your own folder system way better than this. But for now, we have, normally we are supposed to have the core layer, the domain layer, and then the presentation layer. That is the ideal. But if I do that, we'll have to be, nesting through folders, and I don't want that. So for the sake of clarity, I decided to, spread everything out. So we have data, where of course we are going to have a repository and model and other stuff, right? So, but again, I pulled out model for clarity. Normally they should go in here. So we have our model, we have the presenter, we have then the contract. And I'm going to talk about what contract means again. Then we have our view, and this is what we're going to do today, right? So today we are going to be building a model, which is of course a task. To-do list has title, it has date. It's a long here. Let me just change it to date. And then we have the description and of course priority. I'm going to leave out priority for the sake of time, because it's just going to create complexity. And then the repository can cache model, it can return data, pretty much manipulate the data and send to the presenter. We're going to pretend as if things are running in the background here, right? And then we have the presenter that actually, communicates with the repository and then updates the view, right? So the presenter depends on the repository, right? And then we have a view. So we might need a service locator, right? We might need a service locator to actually give us so that we can be able to provide, we pretend as if we are using Dagger, okay, to provide our presenter. Okay, that's fine. And then finally we write test for it. I'm going to be as fast as I can, and I'll be as clear as I can, so that we'll be able to do all of this, right? So we'll go straight into the model. So we created a model called to do, right? This is a to do, it's a class, and it's a data class actually.
Quick
So
one,
we have yeah.
Is it possible for you to increase the size of your font of your Android Studio?
Yes, it is possible.
Cool. You're requesting
Yeah.
for it. Thank you.
Okay. Editor. I'm just gonna put fonts 15. I'm gonna go 15. Okay, and here as well, I'll go 15. Is it okay?
Put it in presentation mode or something.
I don't know
Yes,
if how I don't know how you can do that with
I
Android
think it's
Studio. Is it big enough? I can increase the size if you want.
Maybe we should try 18.
18, right?
Mhm.
All right. Let's go 18. We go to the font, increase to, let's just go 20. Right? And then I put this one as well, get 20. All right. How about now? You remove this time from my time, by the way. Right?
I think that's fine.
You said?
I think that's fine. 20
Okay.
is fine.
Okay, great. All right. So we have a to do. If we go back to our model, we need the title, we need the date and description, right? So we're just going to fill that in. So we need title. By the way, it's going to have ID, so we'll be able to track it. So we have title, and then it has a date or description. That's about it. We might even strip out the date for now. It's just for maybe we'll add a date, but this is just for tutorial purpose. Okay. All right. So this is our, well, let me start the file. All right. So this is our to-do class, and yeah, that's about that. So here on the data, I'm just gonna go straight and put my repository. By the way, you probably don't want to do it this way. Repository, it's just gonna be an object for now. Repository and private file. It's basically hash map. Let me just use a multiple list of all right, so it's just going to be mutable list of to do, and will be a repository can save to do, right? Okay, and then we of course if the to do doesn't exist, we won't save it. By the way, we can also get to do by ID, which is a string, and return to do, which is a nullable, right? And then we can also update to do again, we return a Boolean flag because it might not actually exist. You know, if it doesn't exist, we return a false. Then we save, get, update, whatever's there again, create actually, I forgot to do, and we return what we created. All right, so now let's go and fill all this in. So we check if our cache actually contains it first, right? So let's just go real quickly here. I'm supposed to use hash map so you can track by ID, but you know what? Not, it doesn't matter. Let's just continue. So if cache dot contains to do done not, then I'm just gonna do cache dot add to do. For now, simple solution. Please, there's better ways. Use hashmap. Don't use hashmap for your cache all the time, please. This is just for tutorial purpose. So here I'm going to return my cache to do my cache to do dot get get ID. No, sorry, dot get ID. No, sorry, my bad. Not filter. Sorry, my cache dot filter id equals id dot first. Oh no! All right. Any. It's asking me to change this to any first or no. All right, fine. And you can just use assignment directly instead of, making it using absolutes here. It's not compulsory to use absolute sign. You can just use assignment, but that's fine. So updates to do, again, we say about to do is equals to get to do, and then we pass into do there. To do, which is this one, get to do, to do.id actually. Oops. ID. All right. So, and then we return, we just pretty much do, okay, if to do is null, if to do equals to null, we return false, and then we return, okay, we want to update to do, otherwise we just reassign it. So once we've gotten the to do.id, but to do equals to, we get it to this to do.id, and then we just update the cache. So to do reassignment now, to do, or save, just save it to do, all right? And then here we return true. Okay. On a null stuff, because this guy is a nullable, right? So if it's null, yeah, thank you. So this is better. Okay. Okay. To do is to do, save it to do, and then return true. All right. So create to do, we just pretty much, save it. But we want to be sure that it doesn't exist before we save it. So again, you say if get to do by to do.id is not null. Sorry, this is not what we want to do, but just in case for anybody, for learning purpose, I hope it works. I'm just going to do my cache.add. Sorry, if it's equal to null, rather. My cache.add to do. And I return to do. Otherwise, I return null. Do we return anything? We return the non-label stuff here, so we return null. Okay, so let's save that. Okay, save to do. Okay, that's fine, no worries. So this is our repository. This is not the best solution, please, but just an idea. So we have a model, we have a repository done. The next thing is the part that we actually came for, which is the MVP part. These are everything we've done so far is just the the regular stuff. So for the MVP part now, the MVP depends on something called contract, because the communication between viewer and presenter is controlled by somebody, and that person is is a contract. It's an agreement between both of them. So both view and the presenter has to agree, and the agreement is like both of them are signing the contract that, okay, fine, you'll be doing this and I'll be doing this, and we're not going to break it, something like that. So let's create the contract. So we call it to-do list contract or to-do contract, whatever. So this is an interface, interface called contract, and this interface contains two interfaces. One of them is for the view, the other one is for the presenter, right? So we have an interface called view, and we have another interface called presenter. So for the first interface, that's the view, of course, the view must be able to, because the what we are working on right now is the first screen, which is the screen that we can actually use to create to-do, right? And then we can also have another screen for displaying the list of to-dos. So let's work on the screen for creating to-do. So this one has to change to create to-do contract. So I have to refactor this and rename it to create to-do contract. So we have to create to-do, it accepts some fields and then needs to be able to create the to-do. So the view pretty much doesn't really do much. So the person actually doing the major job is the presenter, and the presenter has a function for creating the to-do, right? So, and the presenter takes the to-do, which of course is the one he wants to create. But after the presenter has created the to-do, it needs to notify the view, because the view needs to know that the presentation, the whatever is done, that the to-do has been created. So maybe then we need a function to notify the user that the to-do has been created. You know, when we create to-do, we need to notify the user that to-do created. So we call the function called to-do created, because the user needs to be aware. And then maybe we need to pass it to do that was created. All right. So the presenter creates it to do, notifies the view, and then the view knows that the to-do is created. Maybe you want to show a toast, or you want to show a snack bar, whatever, just some form of notification, and then maybe do something afterwards, right? So the presenter creates it, the view gets notified about it. So this is the base now. This is the contract, right? So we said that the presenter knows about the view, but how do we actually execute this? How is this going to work? If you're building a project for like a real project, what you first want to do normally, if you maybe you have a building an Mvvm or whatever architecture you were using before, you usually have a base, something that everybody's familiar with. So in this case, I'm going to create a base presenter, right? Because you need a base that everybody's going to extend from. So this base presenter is going to have a view, right? Your presenter has a view, and that's pretty much about that. So we have a base presenter, and one thing you can do if you want your MVP to be lifecycle aware is to make your presenter a lifecycle observer. All right. So if your presenter is a lifecycle observer, then the lifecycle owner becomes the view. So that way it becomes lifecycle aware. And then everything from your on create to your destroy, your presenter knows about it, right? Because it's observing the view. So that's one thing, one optimization you can do to your MVP. So here we're going to create a private variable for our view, which is basically a weak reference. Okay, we're going to be using weak reference here because we don't want the presenter to hold on to the view. If the presenter is holding on to the view, you might not be able to destroy it, and then you create memory leak, right? Because when everything is gone, you're still going to have something in the memory that will not be garbage collected. So you don't want that. So we're going to create a weak reference, which is of type view, and it's a nullable, right? I'm going to make it so this is a var actually. So it's a nullable weak reference that can be null, okay? So our base presenter has a function called, we're going to open it, right? On destroy, so that we can easily set our what's it called now, our view to null. Oops. You can check if it's null, but we don't care. We just want it to be null, right? So this function is going to be open for, in case you want to do any form of cleanups in other presenters, then you can easily just set it to null, or do whatever you want to do whenever the presenter is is going away, or the activities or fragment is getting destroyed. Okay, so we are going to have a function for setting view. So this is non-nullable. So the view is going to be of the type of whatever of, sorry, stop type v, sorry. So we just do, to set the view, we're going to do view is equals to weak reference of view, right? So this is a view here. Maybe I didn't type it correctly. What the hell? View. Wait, am I typing view? Is this the correct spelling? Okay. Yeah, I got it right. Okay, so let me change this variable to this variable overlap here. So I'm just going to use the view, whatever. So I'm going to say view is equals to the view. All right, now that's fine. Okay, so then we have a presenter can also get view, right? So this is just like a generic way of doing it. So this get view returns view, and it's get nullable again. Just, you know, taking out precautions, not introduce memory leak. This is how you do it, so you don't introduce memory leak in your MVP. Let me just say optimizing MVP. So return our view, return view dot get. Oops. Okay, that's fine. Okay, now, so our base presenter can set view and it can get view, and that is fine. And by the way, let me make this guy an abstract class so that nobody else can create it. Okay, good. So we have set view, get view, and then destroy, so that we can easily set the view to null, right? And since we are making this lifecycle observer, we can say this V is a lifecycle owner, right? You can say this V is a lifecycle owner. All these are just like, silly precautions just to be sure. Then you can have an open function. This is just me going out of the board right now. Open function attached to this, whatever you want to call it, and then it takes a and then just do these or whatever your view dot get, right, dot add observer add observer, because your view is a lifecycle owner, right? Dot add observer this, whatever, I don't know if you get it out. So what I wanted to do is just to add this guy to have a life to have this is a lifecycle owner, this is lifecycle observer, and then I'm telling this lifecycle owner to add observer to this, and that's about it. This is out of the board, by the way. It's not off my head right now, but that's what it is. To make it lifecycle aware, so you can have all those benefits you have with Mvvm. Anyways, that's that. So this is our base presenter, and then this is not a good folder structure. I'm just putting it like this so that you'll be more descriptive and more educative. So our view is main activity for now. And main activity normally is to display a list of to-dos. And we're going to have another screen for creating the to-dos actually. So in fact, I think that's what we should do first. All right, moving on. So we have our base presenter done. So now let's create the create to-do presenter, right? So we have create to-do contract. Our main activity is going to extend our, for now, create to-do, oops, sorry, create to-do contract dot view, okay? Yeah, so we need to override that method. So I'm just going to take this out and drop it at the bottom. So here, whenever to-do is created, we just pretty much display a toast, okay? So we just go toast dot make test this toast, oops. And we can just like do something like to do dot name or something like that, or description of title. City forever long, so you display for a long time, sure. All right, so whenever we create a to-do, we just say to-do created, and that's fine. So then the next part is the presenter that actually does the creating to-do itself. And you know that to create a to-do, you need a button to create it, right? So well, we're moving on. So let's create a presenter. So we say create to-do presenter. All right, so class create to-do presenter is create to-do contract dot presenter. And by the way, it extends the base presenter of type create to-do contract dot view, and okay, base presenter. Okay, this guy has to be the lifecycle owner. You know what? I'll get rid of the whole lifecycle thing. This is not a lifecycle owner. That is why it's complaining. So if I make this view a lifecycle owner, then our error should go away. All right. We're not actually using anything lifecycle in this project. I'm just putting it there so you know that that is how you do it if you want it to, if you want to have all those benefits of the whole Mvvm thing. Okay, so get rid of this. that. So to create it to do, we need to be able to, we need the repository, right? So we're going to have a repository and a presenter. Let's inject it. Let's be, since it's an object, maybe we don't have to. It's an object anyway, so our repository is a singlet, it's an object. So I'm just going to call our repository. This is not how you do it normally, but you know, you might want to be more sane, sanitization. You might want to be more clean and all of that, but for now we're just using an object. So I'm just going to call repository dot create to do, and then we pass into do, right? And once this is done, dot to the created to do, right? So when we create to do, we we save it, and then we tell the view that we've actually created it to do, right? Fine. So let me just put it down so it's clearer. So the presenter is base presenter, blah blah, bam, good. So the next thing, so we have our activity. Our activity is knows about this, whatever. So our activity needs to know about our presenter, right? So now, okay, now I have to be a little oh, forget it. So this is not what you do. I feel a little awkward doing this. Normally you want to insert it with var to do crap. Presenter. You send me a message in chat.
Hey, Andre.
Hey.
Yeah.
Is it time?
No, you have 10 more minutes.
10 more minutes. Okay, we just go through this phase, and I hope I will be able to write tests within that, but we'll try. So presenter, I'm doing this all the way like this because so you understand better. So to do presenter is the type of to create to do contract.presenter, and is equal to the conclusion that we had. This is not what you do again, ideally. I'm doing this this way for the sake of tutorial. Normally you should inject it, okay? So that, and we pass this in it. So this is the let's init var, by the way. Let's init var to and I'll say that my to presenter is equals to not to the contract, is create to do presenter, and then I pass this to it. Zero arguments. Oops, it's supposed to take. Okay, it doesn't take arguments. Yeah, it doesn't. Okay, fine. So then I need to set the view to do presenter set view. Since the set view is not here, that's why you saw that. So I'm just gonna create this. I'm gonna add that. Type of this view. Okay. Now I should have it. This. Okay. And this is in the base presenter as well. So I need to confirm that the methods are the same. Base presenter. Holy crap. The base presenter. Okay. All right. So this is a base presenter. We have a set view. I need to be sure that these methods are the same. Okay, the same, fixed view, set view. Okay, that's fine. That's all right. So set view this, and then now let's optimize this layout. Right now it's just a recycler view. This is what I wanted to use for the other screen. And you know what? I'm just going to, instead of using a layout for test, I'm just going to say our presenter should create a to-do, just for demo purpose. To-do presenter dot create to-do, and oops, my tummy is making noise. And then a to-do that we want to create Let me create a little something here. Say, to do. This is just for tutorial purpose. Of to do, returns it to do. Five more. Okay. Sorry guys, did you go? Okay, just you know, creative description. Titles, guess there's some. So what is there? H.
Earlier.
Yo,
Yeah.
almost there.
Yeah, 4 minutes left.
Is this a string? Okay. All right, fine. Okay, so let me just run this and then I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, just wiggle this up. Okay, you add time for building the app. Time for building the app is not part of the presentation. Add time for building the app because the app is still building. You see, it's still building. Okay, so while the app is building, just a little recap on the architecture. So we have a data layer, which is the repository. In your own case, it's probably not this. Okay, it's probably not going to be this. Your repository is pretty much, oh, nice. Okay, so it's running on my phone, but I don't know. Can you see my phone on the camera?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So I'm just going to put it back, and I'm going to run the app again. Can you see you can see my hand, right?
Yes.
Okay, so just look at the bottom and then you should see a toast. Can you see the toast?
Yes, we can.
All right, great. So what is going on here? We have the data layers repository. Ideally, this is not what you want to do. Your repository pretty much is a mediator between your API service and some room database, the data access, your DAO, your data access object, and then you pretty much expose data from there. You do some processing and then you expose your data from there. So that's what your repository should be. And then we have the model, which in this case is just a to-do model. And then we have the base presenter, which serves as the root for, of course, all presenters. It has access to view, which is a weak reference, by the way. This is really important, so that you would not have anything lying down there causing memory leak. This is just to sanitize your MVP. People hate on MVP a lot because of all these issues. So this is how they work around them. This is how to work around it. So the to-do presenter itself extends base presenter. And of course, whenever we create a to-do, we notify the view that we've created a to-do. If we want to write tests for our to-do presenter, it's actually very easy. It's easy to mark. And then the test will verify that when we call create to-do, we verify that the presenter's view also called to do created, which of course will pass, right? So that's how to actually test this one. It's very easy. And yeah, this is a contract, which is an agreement between the view and the presenter that for every presenter that has this view, whenever I do this, the view will have to perform in a particular way. And then I'm setting this view for this presenter. So the presenter knows about the view, and that's it. Nothing more than that. So I plan to actually do more than this, but since time is against us right now, we will be stopping here. And then what are the next steps from here? What is the next thing? The next thing is to pretty much understand other architectures that solve a lot of problems and remove all these boilerplates. And those are Mvvm and MVI. I strongly recommend Mvvm. And MVI can be a little tricky, but I also recommend it as well. If you like MVP, by all means go ahead, but have it in mind, this is becoming obsolete now, but just so you know it. A lot of companies still use it. A lot of companies in Europe still use it, by the way. So I think it's nice to know it. Okay, so yeah, before I talk on the live coding, I just talked about what next. And just a little recap again, we discussed about what MVP architecture is. We explained the architecture diagram. We discussed about why we should use MVP. We talked about the cons, of course, why the issues around using it, and the solutions are actually to those cons. And we did a live coding, even though we didn't finish the live coding. I would have loved to write some tests, but time is against us right now. So yeah, questions, please.
Yeah, awesome presentation, Ali. Just particularly, I really enjoyed the aspect of the innovation using lifecycle observer on our presenter, because I know MVP came up before any of these architecture components.
Yes.
Like I also recently, when I was building a library, and I wanted the client to be able to handle the loading of the images in the library, and so I had to create like an interface. I know also to be able to prevent memory leaks, we need to set those listeners to know whenever on destroy is called or something like that.
Yeah.
Just make the library more robust, I decided to handle that case myself. So by making the helper class, or like the helper class that has the interface inside, also extend lifecycle observer, and then on destroy, I can get to know myself, right?
Yeah.
That's a really useful feature. Yeah. I don't know, do we have any other questions or contributions? If you do, kindly just write on the chat
By
section.
the way, if you find anything complex here, if you have any issues around all this, just type in. Trust me, there is no big deal here. If you have any questions here, please, by all means, maybe not now. You can always DM, ask if you want, because I did a little some tricks here. I know a lot of engineers who understand what I did, and some people might find it a little difficult. So what I did here, basically, it's it's called Kotlin DSL. I created a DSL so that I can easily create to do like this. You know, it's easy for me to create to do like this, right? So that's the purpose of this DSL. In case you don't understand what I did here. And I needed this builder because my to-do is immutable, right? And that is what you want. You want your model to be immutable. It's a val. You can see all fields are val. It is not mutable. Because it is not mutable, I needed a builder so that I'll be able to create one using DSL. You understand? So and again, if you still don't understand, always ask questions because it's really important. Going forward in your Android career life or in our Android career lives, this is what we're going to be getting hit by. If you're writing Java 14, Java 11, Kotlin, this is what it is. So yeah.
All right, cool. Any question? I'm currently looking at the comment section to see if anyone is going to want to ask. No one.
Okay.
Any questions? So I'm going to count. Okay. So I'll give like 5 more seconds to see if there's any questions, and if there's not, we'll move over to our next session.
Questions, concern, please go ahead. Go ahead. There's no big deal. Trust me, no big deal. If you have any issues that you feel you should ask, please. There's no big deal at all. All questions are welcome. Yeah. If you have questions around this base presenter, please ask. This week reference is just an object, meaning that this is not the garbage. It's not going to be cached it's not going to be in the heap for too long. It's not going to be stored in the heap for too long. That's the meaning of this week reference. Okay, it's not going to be in the heap for too long, and it can be easily garbage collected. Period.
Yeah. So yeah.
Have you seen my question?
Yeah, you can just say that.
Why should you use hash map? Oh, why should we use hash map for cache?
Yeah.
Okay, so performance. That's why we want to use hash map for cache. So with hash map, you find data by indexing. So it uses hash linked list, right? So if you know that say for example you want to find an object in a particular position if it is an array, that is easy. But if in an array list, it might be a little tricky. You know how array list works under the hood. If you to add an object, hash map is better for caching.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, because of time, if you have any other question, please still write it down and then we'll answer them either during this meetup or later on. But let's move over to the next up because we want to end by 2 so that everybody can go on with the rest of their activities. Although COVID-19 is keeping everybody at home.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time.
She's crazy. All right. Thank you so much. I will stop my screen share now.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so next I will be speaking on 1 second. Let me share my screen. Can I share my screen? Okay, yeah, I can. Yes, can you guys see my screen now? So can you guys see my screen?
Yes. Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so I will be talking on today like it's conversations on architectures, yeah. So we'll be talking on more of everything that has to do with architectures, and I'll be focusing on Mvvm. Sorry, this one is obstructing my view. Okay, so yeah, I'm Chizoba Obona. You can find me on Twitter at TechieToby, and I work with the Android team at Doist. Yeah, I think I mentioned that earlier. So yes, we're talking about Mvvm here. What does it basically it just stands for model view model. And what it is, these are just basically layers of your app code, right? So your view layer contains everything that has to do with your UI, which is pretty much your activities and your fragments, right? And your sole responsibility is just to display data on the UI. That's all. It's not supposed to do any other thing apart from UI-based logic and displaying information to users, right? And then you can see it communicates to the view model. The view model basically right now, due to the recent Android architecture and the architecture components, we have the view model as part of even our Android code, source code these days. And the view model is simply what holds the data that is to be displayed on the view, right? He holds the data to be displayed on the view. That's his responsibility. And then you can see talking to the model. We can think of the model in this case as what has the data that we're getting from any source, particularly. In the more extended view, you can see that it can be bloated out to have like a repository where the repository in this case is responsible for determining the logic on where to get data from, right? Whether it is from a web service, from a remote data source, or from a local DB, which is like SQLite, right? And if you can see, you'll notice that you can see some live data sections in your view model. What those live data just help you to do are to be able to make your UI react to any change of data in your view model. Yeah, so basically that's like the structure. Like I really want to focus a whole lot on different scenarios you can get while using Mvvm. Yeah, and so let's dive in. And also I'm going to be like seeking you guys' own point of view on different other structures you use at work or in your personal project. So please be open to share because we're all learning here. Okay, yeah, so one important thing I would like to talk about is separation of concerns. What does this basically mean? Is that each layer has its own responsibility, right? Don't give a layer the responsibility of another layer. So as I think I've mentioned this also earlier, that the view is responsible for just displaying UI data. The view model is for holding the data for the UI, and then the model actually brings the data from different sources. We can have remote and DB layers. And then just some scenarios we should actually check. There's some scenarios we should actually check about, like for example, when your live data is actually observing your life cycle, your live data observers in your UI are actually getting data from the view model. Don't try as much as possible not to do some forms of check on your views, but rather you can do them anywhere you want to handle your business logic. Some people handle their business logic in their view model. Some people handle it in use cases. Yes, basically those two places. But try as much as possible to handle those business logic of formatting data or handling exceptions, and then just returning the error message that the user wants to use or the particular UI data for that UI to the UI section, right? And also something I also like checking from time to time is, in order to achieve the separation of concerns, I ask myself, I look through my views, my fragments, my activities, and I say, is there any data structure I see I declared up, or is there any primitive data type declaration? And then if I see any, I ask myself, is it possible for this thing to be in the view model? The reason behind this is because of some of these informations. If there's a possibility that you see a data structure in your views, it means that you're literally maybe doing some data logic in your view. And so that should be moved to the view model, right? Where that is his responsibility, or maybe the use case where you can find the responsibility of holding data or actually performing business logic. But there's some times where you see that you need to send in a unique ID during your fragment initialization. Yes, those case scenarios are fine. But then you also notice that even if they are allowed, there's a way you can easily pass those references directly to your view models and when you're creating your activity, like in your onCreate method or onCreate view method. And then I would advise that way you're trying to ensure that what is saving that data is actually the view model. And whenever you need to get that data, you're actually getting it from your view model and not from your UI, right? And yes, these are some of the things we do manually to just check that and ensure that we are maintaining separation of concerns. But then there are some other things we can do to add strictness to our code base. One of them is modularizing. So having different modules for any of this layer, having different modules can help us ensure that we are actually obeying the rules of maybe in terms of, but this is more broader when you talk about clean architecture though. But then it can also apply here in a way. But when you modularize your app in different projects, you can ensure dependency levels, declaring your dependencies actually help you ensure that you're actually obeying the right architectural rules. And using backing properties is another one I recently found out. And I'll give you a case scenario. Can you guys see my ID right now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, cool. You can see this view model, right? And you can see that I have two live data that look alike, right? So in Kotlin, this is literally called the backing property, and where you have like two initializations of these things, and when you're accessing this guy, you're getting this other information. So basically why, of course, you can easily just decide not to declare just one live data and set it down here and then it will work. But the reason why we are doing this is actually to enforce that strictness that our view, which is our fragments activities, cannot manipulate any this live data in the view model. And how do I mean? For example, if you can see now that the only property that is mutable is this guy. And this guy is actually private. So that means the activity or the view cannot access him. But then I can actually change the value here. But what the activity can listen to is this. And this is not mutable. So even if in the activity I call page messages live adapter dot set value is not going to accept it. It's not going to work. You can't actually set value of a generic live data, right? But whenever I request it, I tell it to send me exactly what I need, which is the value of the mutable property, like the object reference. And I can actually can you guys hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
And I can actually improve this. Kotlin, you can actually make it a bit better by saying equals to, and then you get, because this is similar to get, right? But then this is throwing an error because of it must be initialized. So then I need to do this. Then I need to make this mutable since it's a property that changes. Okay, and then let me just impute it. Another red squiggly line. Oh yeah, so this live page lists builder actually returns a live data, but then my property is requiring immutable live data. So you can actually just cast this guy, but then this may not really be the best way to do it. You may actually cast it and it may work, but it depends on what the internal properties of this class list page, live page list builder does. But if I want this guy to work, I think I can easily, the solution. So yes, okay. So rather than assigning it, because what this means is I'm changing the value of this, I can actually just set the value to the value of this guy. Let's see. Sorry. Autocorrect. Yes, and it works. So basically what it means is that I've initialized this guy, and since it's mutable, I can change the value, right? Yeah, and this works. So that's basically it for backing properties. I can continue that. But I hope you understand how it prevents us from actually preventing our, or let me just show you an instance quickly. Because right now, our view can only listen to this, but it can't listen to this because of it is private, right? Yeah, and then I can't actually do anything like this dot set value I don't think it's going to work because why? Show me the cannot assign value of the protected package, right? So that's literally the main reason. So it helps us, does not allow our code to build. So it actually helps us ensure we're separating concerns. Continuing on. So how do we ensure strict code structures how do we ensure strict code structure to separate concerns in code base? Does anybody have like any way they do this?
How do you word again?
How do you ensure strict code structures? How do you separate concerns in your code base? Are there any little tips and tricks to help you?
Modularization, use of internals when necessary. Yeah, modularization, use of your the field property modifiers like private, internal when very necessary. I think those are the two main ones that you can actually use, and of course you can also use linting. It can also help maybe. So yeah, so those are the tricks that I think that I use actually to enforce people to follow the architecture.
Okay, cool. Is there any other person that has another idea or another way he or she does that? Will anyone like to share? Okay, yeah. So just because of time, if you have something to share, please also type it in the comments. We'll probably review it at the end of the talk. Yeah, so let's just continue. Let's share my screen again. Okay, cool. So we continue, right? So the next thing we're going to be talking about is UI states and data logic. Should we separate them or should we join them? Right. So quick context is, whenever we make a network request, right, most things we expect back are the data we're requesting for, which sometimes we can use to indicate success, right? And also we can also use, we also get the whole loading bar, which helps us indicate the loading state. And sometimes also error views. We also want to show an error view, which indicates a fail state, right? And sorry, yeah. So can we share like the different ways we declare and observe our live data on our UI and also in the view model? Does anybody want to share? Should I just go forward?
Well, one way to it depends on what we're working on, but recently with the advent of Flow, recently the library has lifecycle and on coroutines, which make things a lot easier. So your floats can emit, and then you can keep track of what you're observing from the flow. So you can another, which is the modern way. Then before this modern way, in the past, we can pretty much observe our immutable live data, and because your activity from I think API level 23, from API level 23, that was when it was introduced, but down to API level 14, this is available. The activity is a lifecycle owner, right? So you can actually pretty much on your view model, you can add the observer and sorry, your activity is a lifecycle observer. Sorry, my bad. And then you can add the observer that, and then you can keep observing whenever there is a change in your live data.
Okay, yeah, cool. So let me just quickly share like some of the ways I currently do those things. Yeah, so first time is I can have several live data for these different kinds of data that sometimes we can use to define the states also, right? So here, as you can see in my view model, I'm still using backing properties for each of them, but then I'm defining the data live data, the loading live data, and like error live data, right? And in that same view model, I may call like a function that has these three callbacks on success, on loading, and on error. And basically, I'm setting each of those different live data, setting their values to what is being returned, right? And then this is how I observe them in the view, in the UI. And you notice I'm using view lifecycle owner. This is just in case if you're listening in a fragment, this helps you to prevent some form of memory leaks, but it's just for fragments though. Yes. And also another case is that you can want to simplify your structure a bit and use a single live data, right, to get this information. And most times we can, with the advent of sealed classes, we can actually use that class to hold both our data and our states, right? So you can see I have a sealed class called results that has different states, or let's say data plus states, because I have the success state, the error state, the loading state, and each of these things have like parameters that I can use to transfer my data. My view model right now, rather than having three different live data with their backing properties, I literally just have one right now. And whenever I call that method, you will notice that on each of those three callbacks, on success, on loading, and on error, just setting the value of that one live data and then passing the respective instance of the class, right? With the data inside it. And in my view, in my activity or in my fragment, this is how I observe it. And then depending on what the result is, I tend to do whatever I want, right? Update the UI, show error, show progress bar, show the data in the recycler view, right? But then let's check out this case scenario, right? When we are making one request, we can see here that we're going to compare both cases right now, right? When you have three live data or when you have one. And let's walk through this case scenario when you're making a network request. Let's say you come into a screen or an activity and it literally just makes one request, right? And that request starts happening and then it is successful, right? First case scenario, perfect case scenario, right? Your request is successful. So in this instance where you have three live data, you notice that every other thing will be null, like error will be null. And so your data, live data will be the only thing that has data, right? So your code is going to work perfectly if you're using this structure, right? And then your progress bar will enable and disable depending on whether it's loading or not. You're loading live data, yeah. And then if you're using the second approach where you have one live data, everything will pretty much work well also, because on success is just going to be, the only instance that is going to be called is result of success, and then to update your adapter or update your UI, right? And loading is also going to be called twice to enable and disable loading. So yeah, that's fine. Also, what if we're in like a different case scenario, let's call it an average case scenario, where the first time the request is made, it fails, but then you have like a toast or a pop-up that shows us, you click on retry, an error message pops up and then you click on retry, error message dismiss and tries again, right? So for the first case scenario, and when you retries, it's successful. So you try first time, you get an error, you retry and you get a success. So what happens in the first case scenario is, you notice that first one, the error live data has a value. And then when you request again, the data live data, yeah, then gets a value. But if you notice is that the error live data still has that value. So if you rotate your phone on configuration change, triggers all those live data again, and then you get the pop-up that will trigger the error message. And that's a false positive, right? So there's an issue there. But let us look at the other case scenario where you have one live data, right? Say the first case is error triggers and it shows up, right? And then the second case is a success, right? When it is a success, it displays the data, and on configuration change, you notice that your error does not show again, but then only your success, like the data in your recycler view on the view, shows, because of the instance of that error has actually been replaced with the instance of the success, because you're just using one live data. And let us take another case scenario, which I like to call the worst case scenario, is let's say you have a paginated list. The first page of the list loads well, successfully. The next page tries to load and you get an error. And then you click on retry and then it now loads successfully. So let's see how they go in these two different cases. So if you're using the tree live data model, data, we have the first list. The second time is requesting error, we now have a value. And when you retry, data will update with the second list. When you try to do configuration changes, you'll still see that the error is there, right? So that is also a false positive. And then you also have your view, and let us now look at the other case scenario where you have just one view model. For success case, it shows, perfect. Error now comes in, it shows, but then your view may not actually be tampered with because of you're not literally going to change. Since the code is going to just call result.error, it's probably not going to change what has already been there in the success case. So you may be fine and everything works out well. But then if there's a configuration change that happens at that moment, it means that the entire data that is in your recycler view on the UI is going to disappear. But what you only see is an error state. Yeah, so this method does not seem to work for some very other case scenarios, both methods. So that begs the question, how can we now make this? How can we now solve this problem? Because this works in some approaches, but it doesn't work in all. So does anybody have like an idea of how they can solve this case scenario? Any contributions? Have you faced this kind of issues before? How did you resolve them? Any contribution?
Sorry, can you come again? Can you come again about the issue?
Okay. So I'm saying there's this, I don't know if you could see my screen the last time, or I could share it again.
Yeah, your slides weren't moving that time.
Oh, really? Okay, cool. So let's see now, we have this case. Let's use the worst case scenario, right? That tends not to work for both cases, right? We have a paginated list, and then we create the first list, the first page, it works. We try creating the second page by scrolling, but we get an error. And then we retry, and the second page loads successfully. So we can see that in this approach, if we continue doing that, and we also, this is the first model that has 3 live data. If we get to that third step and then we do configuration change, we're going to still get the error pop up because of it's going to still be valid, right? But that's the false positive, right? So it's not some. And then for the second case, we're going to get success, error, success. But then if we actually rotated the screen when it was on an error, right, we will tend to miss to delete the data that's already displayed on that UI. So in other words, we're only going to see error. So that means these two methods do not really work in some edge cases. So I'm saying, do we have like any resolution to how to solve this problem?
Sorry, I'm trying to figure out if you're talking about a case where you might have the event pop up twice. Maybe if the life cycle is recreated, where you have the error show twice if the life cycle is recreated.
Yes, I think that's basically it, because of when it shows the first time and then you dismiss it, right? But then you know that the value in the view model is still not null because of you've set it before. And so when you recreate your screen due to any form of configuration change, you tend to see the error of live data triggering again and then returning that value that is actually not null, right? So I think we're saying the same thing, yes.
Okay, if I'm getting correctly, I think Google Devs released a single live data, right? That sort of helps you. So what it does is it only emits once, and the next time it emits is the where you put a new value. So that might not fully solve the problem, but at least it's going to ensure that you you don't say get outdated data. So for me, I think what would just happen is probably in your own resume. I had this problem actually, and so what I did was in my own resume, I just made the call again. So I know that when I get it the first time, and my fragment reacts to everything. So in case anything happens and say configuration changes and all, and when the fragment resumes again, I just trigger the call, and then it just gives me the most recent data. I don't know if that's clear or
Yeah,
probably
that's
anything.
so what you do is you request. So rather than using the persisted data in your view model, you actually make another network request on resume, right?
Sorry.
Yep, basically, that's just it.
Sorry. What if you use like a data class for your success data and then for your error data, and then you update the data class with maybe a new error value? So you have like one data class that you are like emitting all the time. Do you get?
100%. Can you come again?
So what I'm saying is, okay, so usually what I do is I have this view data class. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so this view data class, in my view model, I'm copying, like I'm calling dot copy on the view data class. So if maybe there's an error, I have like a variable in the data class that represents that error. So maybe message, and then maybe if there's a success and if it's loading, I have a Boolean that I used to monitor that in the data class, something like that. So I'm calling something like I'm calling copy on that view data class. So when there's an error, every time if there's an error and maybe you have to like maybe refresh the data, then I'll just update the data class that's okay. The error message is now null, is no more the previous value.
Okay, so if I get what you're saying, you mean that you have that model that whenever you're calling either success, error, or loading, you're copying it and you're just updating. So let me give this example. For success, right? You're going to copy and you're only going to update the success version, the success value, right? For loading, you're going to copy it and update just the loading value. And then you do the same thing for error.
Yeah, but that's not just that. So if it is success, I update, okay, success is this, then error is now null. You get?
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. So when you're setting that for success, you're not going to interchange for both of them. So
yes, I'm going to
success and error null, or error and success.
And success null. Yeah, something like that.
But then when you set your success, doesn't it update your UI and remove the data that is already there? Say it's a list in a recycler view. Or
yeah, what I'm saying. Okay. If it's a list in a recycler view, I'm saying I'll put the list as part of like the values in the data class.
Okay, so that means when it is error, are you also going to, when in the case of error, your error is not going to be null, but are you going to send the data? Are you going to copy the data? You're going to copy the data as null.
I don't understand your question.
Okay, so you said you have 3 different case scenarios, right? You have when it is success, you're going to set error to null. I'm saying when it is error, are you going to set success to null or set success to the previous value?
No, I'm not changing the value of success when it is error now. So you just leave success like that because like it will just update the value of the data class as okay, now we have an error, but the success, just leave it. But when it is success, there is no more error. So error will now be null.
Yeah.
You get just one data class that you're updating. So you're observing that particular data class in your activity or whatever. I don't know if.
Yeah, I think that seems like it's going to work. That is actually a good approach too. I don't know if
yes.
What determines the life cycle of that class? I don't want to be.
Yeah, maybe that's an issue actually. The life cycle of that class, because like if you rotate the screen, you might like the view data might actually reset or something.
Yeah, but if
I
you have
guess.
it as a global property,
Yeah, something like that.
your
Yeah,
view model, it will be retained, right?
yeah, it will be retained, something like that, actually.
Okay, well, let me just show you a way that one of my approach that actually seemed to work because of time. Well, nice conversation so far. I think your method is also really interesting. And even the one, is it Ayokule Paul that said it or Mujib? Sorry, I was seeing different people on my screen. But basically, that one was also a good case where you actually get to set, those are like two ways you can also do is when you can actually set the error to null when you get the success message. But then sometimes it may not really look clean, but it looks clean. It kind of looks clean using your data model where you could just copy values. Then I just hope we're not creating too much data. I think it's going to be cleared out if you don't save the instance. It's going to be cleared from the GC. Another way again, as Ayokunle Paul said, or Mujib, I think it's Ayokunle Paul, is that we should actually use the event or the single live data class, right? And that works fine. But then he said it's not really perfect, and I think he may be referring to the case where if it is in error state and you actually do a configuration change, the error state is not going to show because of you already set it to null. It consumes just one time, right? So let me show you how I actually went about this. Yeah, so one way, there are several solutions, but this is just one approach, right? One way is to try to separate the UI data and the UI state logic, right? So here you can see that we have a state logic, which is like a sales class also that observes success, error, and loading. So this is not really combining it with data right now, or combining it with more of state. But then you can see an error here. The error class or the error state has like a data just because of we want to pass in whatever we resolve our exceptions to be in messages, right? And then we now have two live data with their backing properties. The live data that has the data class, that has a data that we need for the UI, the real valuable data the user wants to see. And then the state as a live data also. And then when we call this load, you notice that we update every other thing as normal, but on success, we update the data and then also the state. And in our view, we tend to listen to those two data, right? So once you get the data, you always update your adapter, your recycler view, or update the UI being displayed, basically. But then for the states, you can see that in each of these three states, for success, you can say you want to dismiss the loading icon and error if it is shown. For error, you can dismiss the loading icon and show error. For loading, you show the loading icon and dismiss error if it is shown also. And if you notice, let us use that worst case scenario for this. So let's say we do our first page scroll. We create the first time is a success. We create the second time is an error. We retry and we get a success. Using this thing, when we change configuration change, you notice that before, if it is a success, sometimes you may not really get the error message showing. If it is an error, sometimes you will not get the error message showing. But with this, the error message will still be showing, and then you can still ensure, and then your UI will actually still be there. It won't have been deleted, right? Because of this is not just one instance. The live data has its own instance. And then for which other case scenario did we even, the case where it is successful, and yes, case where it is successful, when you do a configuration change, you notice that the error does not pop up because the error is null now, and then you still get your data. So this seems to work for as much side cases as I've observed. But then as there are different other approaches to solve this problem. So going to the next scenario that I want to discuss in like this Mvvm section is single or multiple view model. Is it this? Sorry, mapping remote data. So this is just like mapping remote data to UI data. This is just like a quick trick that Kotlin helps us to do easily. Are people having questions? Sorry. Is anybody having any form of question? So I can see chat notifications. Okay, I think we'll treat those things later. So basically, let's continue. So some people regularly do Mapper classes that tend to, these Mapper classes just help to convert the data from one model, pretty much the model that the remote server will send to the model that the UI just needs. Because most times we're not showing all those informations to the user, right? But if you don't use the Mapper class, thanks to Kotlin and extension functions, it's an easier way than creating and extending or implementing this type of Mapper class implementation, which is just for the file you actually want to work on, you can just create an extension function and call it whatever you want, passing in what you need and then doing the conversion. And then it actually maps it to the new model. I don't know if you guys can see this new model because something is blocking me here. Okay, yes. So it converts it to the new model and then just returns it to your UI. Yeah, so the I think the last but not the least is single or multiple view models per UI. Yeah, so there's like these conversations, there are different reasons why you can actually use both of them, but then I would advise more strongly on having single view models per UI for several reasons, but at the end, I'm going to love to get feedback from people on what they have tried and what actually worked for them. But the reasons I would say using single view models per UI is because of the data presentation on each of these screens may be different, right? So even if I have, say for example, I'm building a financial application and then I have a wallet view model that basically in the wallet section of my app queries all the whole wallet details like the wallet ID, my wallet balance, and several other things, right? In that method in my UI, in my view model, I may have this extension property, this extension function that converts it to just what I need for the UI in that wallet section. And if I want to reuse that wallet, reuse that wallet view model in another screen, say like the homepage that has lots of features, I may not need that exact UI data. So I need to either create a new method or start tweaking the view model functionality, which makes it looks a lot messy, right? And also making a change, you may want to now make a change in the view model to fit one UI element, and it may cause issues on another UI element. So even talking about separating of concerns, right? Separation of concerns. Having one view, I believe that having one view model per UI tends to help you reserve that so that you don't have to write multiple methods or tweak methods in a view model just to fit different views, right? But if your case scenario, if your app is just something that is simple, maybe like a library that you're not going to extend too much, is a very simple case scenario. And when you know that the data in the view model is the same data in the view model, you don't need to tweak any other thing in the view model. You may try to do so. There are some very, very few cases like that, but I think it's to still work and a bit clean. But if your code is going to tend to grow, I will suggest using multiple single view models per UI. And I really, really love to learn about what happens at work for you guys. What do you guys use both at work or your personal projects? Does anyone like to share? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank God I've not just been talking to my laptop screen. Yeah.
Do you mean generally or with the view models thing?
What I mean with the view models.
So you mean concerning having a single view model per screen?
Yeah, so what are your views? Do you prefer having single view models for view or multiple view models for view? What different case scenarios have you tried it and what are the pros or cons for each of them? And then at the end, tell us like, what's your personal preference based on experience?
Okay, so for an entry point, so you have a module, a feature module, right? So that module will have like a home view model, like a general view model that will contain like very general logic for presenting data to the UI. And then the individual screens within could have their own view models, right? So that's mostly then. If you have if you have shared logic across other screens, then you call into the home view model and give it the scope of the activity.
Yeah.
And then all the screens can share into that. But then the screen specific logic will be in its own view model. So most times the screens have two view models.
Yeah.
As a view model of its entire feature and then the view model of its own screen.
Okay, but why can't, so if we have this pattern, I don't know if you're talking about the pattern where you have like an activity that has several fragments.
Yeah, single activity.
With several fragments, right? And in some of those situations, yes, okay, yes. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if this is what you're saying, that you can create like a view model that you know has data for every, that it can be shared across the different fragments, but then each individual fragment has its own unique query or its own unique business logic. Then you can now create their own individual view models.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah, that's cool. Like that's perfect also. So it's very interesting that that is even for, yeah. Any other contribution? Any other comments? Belema, you want to say something?
Okay, yeah. So I've tried the two approaches before. Initially, I wanted to try limiting it to like based off the request, you do like a view model for that and then use it in your various screens. But what I noticed is that in some cases, some screens require like different, like for instance, the dashboard now could require data from like different repositories and stuff. And then you might have to now start going to those view models and tweaking things. The chain is, based on that experience, I believe that the best approach is to do per screen, because in that case, then you can just add per screen, just adding what you need within whether repositories or whatever for that screen. If you start doing it per view model, you have a lot of view models in your screen with a lot of stuff you don't need really.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm even happy that it's not, well, I'm seeing more people that have had this experience before. And just to add, when you're trying to maintain one view model per view, basically what you need to reuse, because right now we are trying to reuse our view models, but basically what you need to reuse are your repositories or your use cases, because your use cases are connected to those repositories. But these two terms are like for clean architecture, but for those of you that do it, I believe you understand what I'm saying. For those of you that don't, sorry for going too far. But yes, basically, I think I showed you the sample of repository section earlier. We should actually do those things in like the specific repositories rather than on the view model. That's my own perspective. Yeah, I don't know if we
Yeah, I
have.
think you could also sort of like maybe if you need to fetch data from like from different sources, then you could just maybe like create a method in your say repository that just zips all of the 3 different responses together into a single data class that you can observe. That works. I've tried that, it worked before. So instead of having to like creating multiple view models because you're fetching different data, you could easily just zip all of them into a single request and then it works.
Yeah, cool. But then does that mean that in the view model, but will you be reusing the view model in this case scenario?
Will you be what?
Reusing your view model in different views in this case scenario?
Yes, you could always reuse your view models. I mean, I feel reusing a view model is just is more of a question of how are you tied together. So do they sort of like share? For example, now I reuse view models within fragments that share the same activity, if there's a need for that. So I don't think maybe view models to like have any effect on.
You could share them across map graphs or some other weird.
Yes. If it's in that case, I don't have a problem with it though. Like sharing view models across different fragments is awesome. Like it's great. It's even recommended. So maybe I didn't just add that. But I think the issue I'm having here is where you have one fragment and then you see like 3 different view models because they were trying to get data. That to me is like, I think is overload, but that's my like perspective though. Yeah. Thanks a lot for the conversations. I think I'm done with what I have to say for today. And yeah, that's all for now. Thank you. If you have other questions or comments, I think we should just jot them down. We'll find different ways to address them, either via email or via social media. But now we need to go to the last talk due to time. Yeah, so we've been inviting our third speaker who is going to talk to us about MVI. And it's a very, very interesting concept that people that like doing experiment in the Android world created. So give it up for Mujib. Is he still here?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Everybody, wow. Good afternoon, guys. My name is Ali Abdul Mujib. I'm an Android engineer at Softcom Limited. I think I'm just what? God, Softcom. So, anyway, I'm an Android engineer at Softcom Limited, and yeah. So let's get into it. Let's talk about model view intent. I want to share my screen now. Wait, how do you do that?
So quick on Muji before you start. So let's say, so we actually overwent through our timeline. But please, everyone should please bear with us. Let's just try seeing if we can take this to 2:30. Please, thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
I'm not starting from the beginning of my slides. Okay, cool. Good afternoon, everyone. Can everybody see my screen?
Positive.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Cool. So yeah, my name is Mujib, and I'm going to talk to you about model view intent for Android. Really, MVI. I know there's a lot of MV Samsung going around in the Android space today, and to be honest, this is just another one of them. MVI stands for Model View Intent, and it was proposed for Android by Heinz Dorfman. There is actually a lot of history behind why anybody thought of unidirectional data flow. It's more of a concept that we borrowed from the web development world. So if you are familiar with React or one of those state management libraries for JavaScript, I don't think MVI should be too strange. So like I said, it was proposed for Android by Heinz Dorfman, and the architecture really comes to life when you pair it with reactive streams, so Rx, Java, or Flow. But to be honest, you can actually do what you like. You can use like a sequential way of programming and to still work out pretty well. It is very important that we keep some things in mind, and one of them is unidirectional data flow. So if you look at the GIF in the image, the GIF that is currently in the slides, you see that there's interaction going in one particular direction, and that's what I'm talking about when I say unidirectional data flow. So the user interacts with the phone, for example. That means it produces an intent. I'll get into the expansion of an intent. That intent does something, then it changes the state of the app, and then that state gets rendered in the view. Then the user sees that again, and it sees and it creates and interacts with the screen again, and that interaction might be a button click or some random thing, and then it creates another intent, and then the state changes, and then you see it in the view, and the user, it's just like in one direction, continually changing data, continually interacting, changing data, changing view states, and all of that. If you think about it, it's very natural when you think about it that way, because that's literally how we interact with these devices. We press a button and something happens, and we get some reaction in our mind, and we press another button and another thing happens, and it goes on and on and on until you get bored and maybe close your phone and go to sleep. But yeah, so that's the big idea behind unidirectional data flow. Do we really need another MV something? like another MV architecture. And to be honest, yeah, it's really not, it's not really bringing anything completely foreign. It's not breaking anything. You shouldn't learn MVI and go and completely rewrite your existing code base, because to be honest, the architecture itself is built on you can actually build it on either MVP or Mvvm as we know it, but it's really just an extra step to help you really avoid misuse of the architecture. So, and it helps you do this by using something called a state. I know Chizoba already spoke to this in some way in his talk, and he spoke about representing the state of your view in a really concise form, and that's really what MVI is. Well, at least to a large extent, that's some of what MVI is. So it helps you keep the state of your view, the state of everything actually in one place, so that you're not keeping separate states for presenter, you're not keeping a separate state for your repository, you're not keeping your separate states for your view. So it could hold anything from its loading to its refreshing to even the error thrown by the repository class. And so this is just a quick example of a view that has a state, that has the loading states ongoing. So you see that when the state gets rendered, you see a pull to refresh showing. And to be honest, this is a very simple use case. But as we go into the talk, you get to see more and more of how you can use this state to model your class. A lot of things happen to model your view. A lot of things happen in the background when you're working with MVI, and hopefully we have enough time to go through all of them. You can kind of take state as it is and go the approach of Mvvm, and really, I think you do pretty well considering. But you start to run into issues when you have like really complicated state management, or it doesn't even have to be complicated, but when your user really interacts with the app, you start to see some weird things that may happen, and handling them in the normal way, or trying to use workarounds to handle them, might just really make for some kind of messy code base, at least in my opinion. So if you look at the screen right now, we have a pull to refresh displaying at the same time there is an empty screen. There's an empty state. So like this now, the view is in two states. It's in the empty state and it's also in the loading state, which makes no sense, to be honest. If you are loading, let's know you are loading, and if not, you might as well just display the empty state. The way you probably get into this situation is if you have an app that, for example, loads data from, we've been pushing this narrative of building for the next billion users. So if you have an app that probably uses Room to store data, to cache data, and you're trying to you're also going to try to update that data whenever you open the app. So there are a number of ways you do this. The way I usually would fall towards is observing the DB, observing Room, probably using RxJava or Live Data or Flow, and then launching a network call. I'll pull the data in Room. If there is none, I'll just display an empty list, and then I'll launch a network call to fetch new data into the DB. If there's nothing, obviously it will stay empty, but if there's something, it will update the database. It will update the view. You now see a problem when there's no data in the DB, but you now you observe it. So when you launch your app with Mvvm, you fire some initial state to your view, so it's idle. Then based on maybe the app now is in on view created, maybe you are in a fragment and you've called on view created, you launch a network call or you start observing the DB, and the DB is empty for some reason, so automatically you made a network call, so that network call is in flight, and then your DB that you're observing now gives you an empty list. So you display an empty state, and your loading indicator goes away. In that situation, there's a network call in flight, but you're not actually displaying it to your user. And yeah, it might not seem like a big issue, but if you compound it over some time, it now really becomes a real situation. So for example, it might also be that there's even some data cached in the DB, but so when you observe the DB, it shows on the list, but there's still a network call in flight, and you're not showing that loading to the user in any way. You're not showing the user that the app is loading in any way. So yeah, the state of the app doesn't necessarily match what is being displayed to the user. So yeah, those are some examples of problems with state management that I've come across, and that MVI can really help you really solve when it comes down to it. So yeah, it comes it's 3 words, right? Model, view, intent, and MVI is kind of like I don't have that image in my slides, but there's this popular image where everything is kind of like in pure functions. So the result of the view and the result of the model gets passed to the view. I don't remember, to be honest. The result of the model gets passed to. Sorry, the result of the intent gets passed to the model, which then gets passed to the view, and it can go on and on and on like that. So it's like pure functions where is always constant. For at least for a set of inputs, the result is always constant. So that's kind of how MVI is. The intent part of MVI represents some form of input from the user. So for example, the user clicked a button, that is an intent. If you click a button, it means you want to perform an action. That's an intention to perform an action. It swipes to refresh. It intends to swipe and refresh the screen. So like it's quite literally what the word means. Intention is just representing intention of the user. So you can go about the intent. You can go about creating those intents in a reactive way. That's completely up to the programmer, or you can do them in also not reactive ways. So you can just do imperative programming and use callbacks. But to really enjoy the benefits of MVI, is strongly advised that you use at least RxJava or Flow. So the model basically holds the condition of the view. So it's in MVI, the model is really the state. So it holds the condition of the view that it can be observed and then rendered to the screen. And then the view takes the model or state. You can use those words interchangeably. It takes the model of the state and that is obtained from the model function and renders it onto the user interface. So yeah, like I said, at this part of the course, at this part of the the tutorial, we're going to get into really hooking things up together with RxJava 2. Because the way we use our user interfaces, there are a lot of events going on. So typically we'll do on click event listener. You do a swipe refresh listener. So there is actually Android user interfaces actually really heavy on event-based programming. And a popular library for event programming like that is RxJava. So it makes sense to use Rx as a kind of glue. So you connect all the components of MVI together, and you use RxJava as the glue that holds everything together to make like a cohesive program. But it's important to note that you can actually use an imperative format like I've been saying, or you can use Flow, which is the new shiny library that Google and JetBrains released. Okay, so let's get into the code. Because of I tried to do a live coding session last time. I think it ate a bunch of my time, so I wrote a project that uses MVI, and I'm going to link it at the end of this talk. It's going to be at the end of the slides, so everybody can just go there and check it out, and you can reach out to me for any questions, maybe on social media, or maybe I'll just leave my number or something. So what I did was extract code snippets that I thought were really important from my repository, and then we'll go through those code snippets and kind of walk through how you typically set up a view or an app for MVI. The app we're going to be building is the same country flags app, but this time with MVI, and hopefully I hope everybody will be able to follow along with this approach. So the first thing I usually like to do for any view that I'm writing, at least, is define a view state. So like I said, the view state is the model. So it represents success. It can tell you the success state, the error state, the loading state, and the idle state. You can look at the code snippet here. So you can have any number of, the view can ultimately fall into any number of states, but because of the simplicity of this app, I decided to use sealed classes to kind of set up like a closed number of states. So I'm using sealed classes really because we have like a simple state representation, and state classes allow us to have well-defined classes and well-defined states that can hold instance specific data. So for example, you can see the success here. The success state here actually implements the all countries view state, and all it's concerned about is that that's at this point of success you have some form of representation of countries, a list of countries anyway. The data class as well, the error state actually has a throwable. The loading state kind of just is an object because it doesn't have any data that represents anything in that instance, and the same thing for the idle states. Okay. So the first thing I usually do after defining the states, the next thing I do would be to define some interfaces that will kind of serve as a description of the other components. So we've done model. So this for the sake of this project, actually you can run MVI. You can do MVI with either MVP or Mvvm. To be honest, whatever floats your boat. But for the sake of this talk, I decided to go with MVI. With Mvvm, because the view model class from architecture components kind of gives us some advantages that, I mean, they're really so good that I didn't want to pass them up. If you notice, there are two functions in this interface. One is process intents. So what this does is really, it takes a stream of intents from the view and it turns them into, let's just call them actions, and then it makes a network call, and then a new state comes up, and then it sends, so it returns, if you notice, it also returns an observable of states, like a stream of states. So it makes a new state, and the view looks at that state and renders it as appropriately. And that's what you'll notice with the MVI view interface. So using the Mvvm, to be honest, if you look at the title of the interface, you can name it anything you want. You can actually name it MVI state maker, to be honest. But because I was going to implement a view model anyway, I just decided to go with MVI view model as an interface. So the view does something very similar. So if you notice, this guy accepts intents and produces states. This guy accepts, this guy's render states, views render states and produce intents. So you see that it has two functions as well. It collects a state and renders it appropriately, or it returns a stream of continuously created intent. So the user clicks a button, you create an intent, you fire it, the view model or the view model basically processes the intent, makes a new state, and goes on and on like that. So those are the first three things I like to do. And then you might now write a set of classes as well. Seal classes, again. The reason why I like using seal classes for this architecture is because, again, you can just use it to hold, you can use like enums, number one, and then you can hold like specific data for that particular instance, and makes for really, really clean code. So you can notice that there are three intents that this particular view that I'm enabling it to do anyway. So the first one is load all countries intents. The second one is refresh all countries intents. So the load all countries intents is when you first open the app, that first action, you just want to automatically load your data. The second one is refresh all countries intents. The user intentionally swiped down on the screen to refresh the view. And the third one is search all countries intents. So you notice that all of them take parameters. Sometimes your intents may take parameters, sometimes they may not, depending on what you're trying to achieve. If you notice, this one takes query. So that's just maybe the search, the thing you want to search for, maybe beans, or because we are talking about countries here, Nigeria. Cool. So the next thing is you also want to have a set of results. So for each of these intents, there should be an accompanying result that kind of, when this intent finish, when the view model, in this case, let's just go with view model. When the view model, in this case, finishes working on the user's intention and maybe makes a network call or updates a cache. Sorry, are there messages from me? Yeah, you did, whoever that is. Yeah, so when the view model finishes its work on the intents, you obviously want to get some kind of result that you now use to inform your new view state. So that's why you notice I have load all countries results and search all countries results. So load all country results can have you can have three types of results: success, loading, and error. For search all countries as well, you can have success. This is something that happens with copy and paste. You can have success, loading, in this case refreshing, and error. So really, success holds the data you want to represent. Loading does nothing because it's just, you just know that view is loading. And error holds the error that might have occurred anywhere up the stream. So carrying on. So when you're done, initializing all those things, the next thing you really want to do is now start fleshing out your view model. Like I said, for this talk, we'll be sticking to the view model class from Android architecture components. So you notice I'm inheriting from the normal view model class, and then I'm inheriting Mvvm view model, and I'm just using it to do some kind of type safety, so that we know the kind of states the kind of intents this view model will take and the kind of states that it will emit. So when that happens, you have to obviously implement some methods. So first thing here is the intent subject. The intent subject is like a published subject. A published subject in RxJava can both observe and subscribe. I'm sorry, it can publish, it can emit events, and it can also be a subscriber. So it can be a publisher and a subscriber. And you see the reason why I'm using a published subject here. The intent filter is doing something very interesting. I only want to only fire that initial intent once. So if you notice, I'm doing shared of type all countries intent, the load countries intent, the take one. So what all of this intent filter does for me is, if I want to make a special transformation, if I want to do like a special limit, or I want to filter some kind of things out of my intent stream, I'll probably use an intent filter. And it's a simple observable transformer. So an observable transformer really, it just takes an argument and can perform an operation on it, and probably return an argument of a different type, depending on the situation. In this situation, we are returning the same type, but yeah, you can return a different type or the same type. So, but what I'm using for long and short is to just filter out certain events after they've occurred once. The state observable is really just going to be emitting states. And let me show you what I mean. So if you notice, it's an observable, but I'm directly assigning a method to it. And this is that method, the compose method. In my opinion, this is the core of the intent. So you can call your intent a view model. You can call your intent, I mean the function called intent, the pure function I was describing earlier that is called intent as regards MVI. So you can call it a view model, or you can call it a presenter. But at the cross of everything, you probably want to have this kind of a function. And really what it does is, first off, it uses it first filters out any of the rubbish, not rubbish anyway, but any of the unwanted events. So any intent that has happened once, or any other thing that you are filtering out, it first takes that and use it to compose the rest of the observable. Then it also now takes so compose is an RxJava operator, sorry. So I should mention that this thing is quite heavy on RxJava. So the next thing is I use another observable field, actually, another observable transformer that I'll show you in the next class, in the next slide, to take intents and then turn them into states. Really, that's what happens. So take intents and turn them into actions. So those actions will return results, and those results can now be reduced into new states. So after the compose line, you can see the scan line. The scan operator, basically what it does is it takes it aggregates. It's basically an aggregator. So you have a previous state. It will take that previous state, it will perform an operation on it, and it will emit a new state. And it's very important here to note that you cannot be modifying states. You have to constantly make new states for your views. So you are never ever going to be in a situation where you are modifying the old state. You're probably just going to be using the old state to inform a new state. Maybe you are paging data, so you want to move the old data. You want to append new data to the data that the list that was in the old state. So you basically just append a new set of items, a new set of countries, and you make a new state and you emit it to the view. And this is distinct until changed. This is something that is specific to the view I was trying to make. So the views, the states that are going to be emitted from this observable are going to be distinct. As far as it's not changing, it's not going to emit a new one. And replay is just that, so that everybody that connects to the states, everybody that connects to the state observable downstream will always get the most recent one. So maybe the app has done some things in the background. The moment you start subscribing to that, observable, you get it. And auto connect is just limits the number of automatic connections that can happen to the observable. How do I explain that? Anyway, so yeah, the action processor that takes intent and turns them into results. So let me show you what it does. Really is again an observable transformer. So I need to maybe just maybe try and understand the meaning of observable transformers. The Mvvm section. I'll get back to that question. Let me just run through this thing. Then I'll answer questions. Sorry. Okay. Okay. So the action processor basically takes intents of a particular type, and based on the type of intent, it gives it to another processor, which now is specific to that intent type. So if you notice, if you get a search all countries intent here, in the I think in the 5th line of this snippet. Sorry about the formatting of the snippets. Actually, I was trying to use something called Carbon to format my code snippets into pictures, but it was just messing everything up for some reason. But when you get a search countries intent, anyway, what happens is it basically just goes and looks for the processor that is directly tied to processing search countries, to processing country search intents. So if you notice, this observable transformer takes a type of search countries intent and then returns search countries results. So what it does in the background really is just executes a use case, and when that use case finishes its execution, it makes a success case. So you notice that it makes success object and then maps it correctly if you are doing clean architecture. And then if there's an error, it returns an error state. And then if it starts with the refreshing state. So the refreshing state, just for the case of this store, just think of the refreshing state as loading. So what happens is the moment someone starts observing this string, you get refreshing. So it first emits that, okay, I'm working on it. Then depending on what happens, whether an error or a success, it either maps the data that comes from the success case, or it returns an error case, as you notice happens on error returns. And then we have a very important concept for MBI, which is the state reducer. So if you notice in the compose snippet, you see that the scan operator, like I said, takes the old state, the old state, it aggregates the old state, and it uses a reducer to kind of make a new state. So let me switch back to that slide. And that's exactly what happens here. So when you get a result that is of load all country type or load all countries, if the result is success, you make a new state of success and pass in the data. If the result is error, you make a new state of error and pass in the data. If it is still loading, you just return the loading state. And the same thing happens for search all countries results. So what you notice here is I'm always making a new state. There's no point where I'm modifying the old state. So because this app is pretty simple and I'm not doing paging or anything, I'm not even using the old state. So it's just there. You notice I just used an underline to represent the name there. But I'm not even using it at all. So what I'm using really is the result. And based on the type of result I get, I make a new state that carries forward the data that is contained in that result. And then this is the part where you tie everything together with the view. So obviously this is a very simple fragment. It implements Dagger fragment for dependency injection. And then you have, now inherits Dagger fragment, then implements the MVI view state, the MVI view. And also it just says the same thing. The type of intents you can expect from this view and the type of state that it can render. So it's just to keep things a bit sane. So this is how you make a typical intent using RX bindings by Jake Wharton. So you have a search query subject. So for example, if you had a search view in your view, you can use RX binding directly. But I had what I have was a toolbar search view. So I had to make a published subject that I will now map and make intents to it. So if you notice, the subject came with a query, and based on that query, I was going to, I'm basically just constructing a new intent that will now get passed to the view. So this is the implementation of the intent method in the view. So you see, what I'm doing here is merging a bunch of intents together. So everything now becomes you now begin to see what I was talking about earlier with the unidirectional data flow. Everything is just one large observable that you keep observing and adding new events to. And then you keep observing and adding new events to and rendering them as the case is. So I'm merging all the intents I have in that view, and I'm basically just passing them on view created and passing them to the view model. So you see, it processes the intents, and okay, the other stuff is just boilerplate stuff for handling recycler view and navigation. Okay, so that's actually it. Then, okay, so I didn't get into rendering. Wow, interesting. Okay, let me just show you. I didn't add rendering views.
Yeah.
I didn't add yeah, my time is up.
No, yeah, you have like 5 more minutes, so you can use that to explain rendering.
Okay, let me just quickly do that. Okay. If can everybody see my IDE?
We can see your presentation.
We can see the presentation.
Oh, okay. Let me just try to.
If your ID is in full screen, that's probably why, because you're sharing just your text.
Can you ever see my ID now?
No. What you should do is.
How about now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So what you notice is it's really straightforward from that point, actually. So yeah, you're processing the intents here, and you're rendering here. Okay, so obviously you are processing the intents, and then you're subscribing to states from the view model. So like I said, you know, the view model returns a state observable, which is a consistent stream of states that are always rendering here. So when you get a success state, you present the success state. When you get an error state, you present the error state. When you get a loading state, you present the loading state. And I think that's kind of self-explanatory. If you saw Abdullah's and Chizoba's talk, I think it kind of handles itself from that point onwards. So let me just get back to my slides. I think I don't know how to get out of my slides anymore. Okay. Okay. All right. So let me quickly just say how you probably test MVI. Can everybody still see my presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, this is an interesting part.
All right. So this is how you want to test. At least I'm going to get into testing the view model only. I like to think, I don't know if it's as obvious to me how you do like a UI test, or I mean, I know I didn't get into setting up your repositories and all that, but I mean, there's a lot of knowledge already on how to test repositories and other things online, and how to do like UI testing online. So again, if you have questions about those kind of things, you can reach out to me on Twitter, or you can just look at the repository that I'm going to add at the end of this presentation. So yeah, the kind of things you want to test is that, okay, when you send a load countries intent to the view model, does it return the correct data? So yeah, all of the first few lines are just setting up the test, stopping a few things. The last part is a test observer, and here I'm just sending an observable that has one thing. So observable will just load countries intent, and true that is online. So at this part, you see
you see that it asserts the value and it checks that it is equal to the list I stopped. So that's just to make sure that the data I passed, the data that whenever you basically send a success state and you stop a success state here, and you notice in stop get transfers, I just emitted a list. It returns the correct data. The same thing for error. I'm stopping an error state and I'm observing and checking my stream. I'm checking my stream that I'm actually getting an error state in my states observable. So yeah, those are some of the test cases that you want to look out for. You can try to do some interesting things with your tests when you want to get into like paging, to make sure that maybe the data stays consistent in terms of length, or that you're even calling calling the correct methods, or the correct methods the correct number of times. So all of those things are things that you can just take a quick look at the repository for. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. And yeah, I guess that's everything. I would advise everybody to really take, I know this talk was like a real blizzard, like I was trying to just get everything out as soon as possible. So a very important link that I think everybody that wants to get into MVI should look at is his Dorfman's blog. It's just amazing. He built it in MVP, but it kind of just brings a lot of the concepts to a very granular level. He explains it in a very granular way that you can just see everything you need, you can possibly need, at least in my opinion, to get started with MVI, you will find in this blog. And then this repository is just the code that supports his blog post. That means his Dorfman's blog post. The third one is the country flags repository that I used for this talk. And the fourth one is a repository by Reactive Circus. So this it kind of explores MVI, but it uses Flow. So it's actually a very interesting repository as well. And the fifth one is a course on it that I discovered on Rewendalich. So I think it's a good introduction to MVI for everybody. But I'd advise that everybody at least takes really reads the blog post first, and then goes ahead to take this course on Rewendalich. Yeah.
Rewendalich.
Yeah, rewendalich.com. So yeah, that's everything. And I think we can get to the questions now if there's still time.
Yeah, awesome talk, Mujib. Thanks for your time. Yeah, do we have any question? Is Kelvin still here? I think he asked a question on has the
MVVM section been done?
I'm not really sure what he meant.
What
the MVVM architecture or MVVM as regards the Mujib's talk on MVI?
Hello, I have a question.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so my question is this. Having seen how MVI actually works, right? It looks like this. If you guys are not familiar with the syntax in MVI, right? So what benefit does it have exactly over MVVM that we use as most common? And your MVC.
An MVC.
So some people actually use MVC, but that's not the talk for today. So what advantage?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think MVC in that intended format as kind of, it's not the way we use it in Android. What we call MVC in Android, far from the truth. Like that's, like you said, it's not a talk for today. But I actually think over MVVM, like I said, it's not supposed to make you go and re-architect your entire code base. But there are some screens in your app that get incredibly so complex that you really need proper state management. And that's what MVI helps you do. So for example, you look at the Netflix app, you notice that it has, I don't have it open, but you notice that it has like a number of lists, a number of like horizontal lists in a vertical list, and the horizontal lists are paged. You get, so it means each of the horizontal lists has its own state that has to be properly maintained. So it means a view somewhere down in the maybe you have 10 lists, you have 10 sections on your home screen. It means somewhere on that screen, one of the lists might be loading while the other is completely idle. So the point of MVI is not to make you jump your Mvvm architecture. And that was something I made really important. I made it a point of saying earlier. It's not meant to make you jump your Mvvm. It's actually just an improvement to really help you handle state management. So you might have some complicated screen, like the one I explained earlier, where you are trying to observe from data, but you want to observe some data from your cache, and you want to observe that cache. But you also want to have a proper representation of what your app is currently doing. You want to represent that in a proper way in your view. I think MVI excels superbly in that. And also, if you really want to explore unidirectional data flow, so those are some of the concepts that you might need to look into to really appreciate MVI. So you want everything in your app to be going in one direction, and to really, again, just really have proper state management. That's something that MVI excels in. So it's more of like an improvement on either MVP or Mvvm, but it doesn't necessarily mean we should go and junk. So they are not competing architectures actually. They are more of working hand in hand kind of. It's more of a work hand in hand kind of situation. So really, you can build an app with MVP and then add a layer of MVI in some screens that really need that level of state management, or you build Mvvm and add MVI just to improve the user experience that your users might get when they use your app.
Right.
Maybe it might be okay. Yeah.
Continue, please.
I have a question when you're done.
Okay, I might have generalized too quickly with the simplicity of my example. Maybe my example was too simple, so maybe hard. Because that app I built, you just want to display a list of countries. Why write all that code? But I understand you completely.
All right, so just to conclude on that.
Okay.
So does it mean like most dashboards, some dashboards you have graphs, you have some recent transactions, that kind of dashboard. Can we, instead of having like multiple view models, I remember we talked about multiple view models in the fragment.
Yeah.
Instead of having multiple view models, we just have them as individual states and manage them.
Yeah. So I get what you're saying. What you probably want to do in that situation is not have individual multiple states, but you have one state that contains partial state for everything in that screen. So you now have inside maybe you now have main state, then you have analytics item state, then you have all of it is inside main state. Like you use sync classes, right? But you now have analytics items. You just nest it like that, and you have like really explicit states for everything in that view.
Excellent. That's nice.
Okay. My question, can you provide clarity on, since we do state transition, right? And this data is immutable. So when we are moving from one state to another, it's basically we're in a new state now. Like how does MVI help us around things like memory, since it is not mutable?
Memory how?
Is there going to be any issue around memory or not? This is just for clarity's sake for everyone.
Okay. No, not at all. If you notice, most of the state management happens in the reducer, and you're not holding an instance of states. There's just a stream of states. So there's no point where you keep a var state in your view model or in your activity or your fragment. It's mostly once a new state is available, the old state, you're no longer looking at it. So at some point it gets garbage collected and you're rendering the new state. So there's no point where you're holding on to any instance of state. More likely you are going to be holding on to like a stream of states. So all you have to do really is just to clean up after yourself. So if you are using live data to observe your states, perfect. That's good. If you're using RX Java to observe your states, you need to clean up. You need to dispose your disposables. Or if you're using Flow, like you mentioned during your talk, you can use Flow coroutines. So you can do coroutines or launch when resumed to observe your states as well. And you just basically keep observing those states as with Flow as the case is.
Nice. Yeah. So that means there is nothing. We are not persisting anything. You're not holding on to anything. No. Okay, great.
I'm not holding on to anything.
What if we have a scenario where maybe for optimization purpose, you want to, can there be any scenario where you want to hold on to previous state?
Yeah. So that was you typically not keep that state in Can I share my screen again?
Yes.
Okay. You won't keep that state in you wouldn't keep your state in like a variable. So MBI kind of already, like at least doing with RX Java or Vue or coroutines or Flow. I know you can do the same thing with Flow. Kind of already helps you hold an instance of the old state, but it's part of the observable stream. So you never have to manage a reference of it. And let me show you what I mean. So this scan operator, I remember explaining that it is an aggregator. So obviously, can everybody see my IDE?
Yes, we can all see your IDE.
Okay, so the line I'm highlighting, line 36, you have a scan operator. What it does is it starts with something initial. So in this case, the initial state is idle. So I didn't have to tell my view model that the view is idle. Like I didn't have to do that. So the view will first be idle. So that's the initial state. That will be the first point of reference. And then the reducer will now take that initial state, like the idle state, and then when there's a new result, it will basically construct a new state. Yeah, it will update it. Yeah.
Perfect.
So I didn't do anything with the old state here, but in situations where you want to do that, it's always
this is what happens.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, cool.
Awesome. Well, about far behind. Like spent a whole lot of time, but then it has really been an interesting session. Thank everyone for coming out here today. Thanks to all the speakers, Mujib and Aliu. Really appreciate everyone's inputs for driving the conversation. So thanks to everybody in the community. Yeah, so you'll be getting like a follow-up email to get your experiences on this meetup and actually give us feedback so that we can actually improve it for you. And I hope everybody responds to them. Yeah, so thanks for your time. Thanks for today and have a lovely weekend. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.